I want to speak about the concept of hasad. I want to speak about the concept of envy, jealousy, hasad. And I think that's a very important topic because it's something that it's something that is really consuming people with a lot of internal rage, which sometimes is expressed outwardly, and it causes a lot of problems and it causes great misery. And I don't know if you've ever experienced any kind of hasad or jealousy, but you understand what that gets you into, you know, this kind of jealousy, what it gets you into. And I think what we want to speak quickly about today is what jealousy does and how we can try to avoid it, how we can cure ourselves of this extreme jealousy or envy that some people may feel. So I'm going to mention to you Imam Nahlawi's definition. Imam Nahlawi's definition of hasad is very interesting. He says it's iradatu zawali ni'matillahi ta'ala. It's iradatu zawali ni'matillahi ta'ala an ahadin mimma lahu fihi salahun diniyyun aw dunyawiyyun min ghayri dararin fil akhirah aw adami iradati wusuliha ilayhi. What it means is, he says that it's the intention, the desire to have something removed from another person which is considered a bounty of Allah. So somebody else possesses something that is the bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The intention is that the hasad means that you want that removed from them, that bounty removed from them. And whereas that thing is of benefit to this person from a worldly or a ukhrawi sense, worldly or otherworldly sense. So what we're saying is that Allah has bestowed somebody with either some very great worldly bounties which hasn't been given to the other person or may have been given to the other person, or it's a religious piety which is related to the hereafter. And this thing is not detrimental to them, because what that means is that sometimes a person may be committing a haram, or may have these particular friends which he's very proud of, or she's very proud of, that is actually haram, but she or he considers this to be a bounty. That, oh, I'm so lucky I've got these type of friends, or I'm so lucky I've got membership into this particular type of club, or I'm so lucky that I've got this particular type of job, and it could be a completely haram job, right? So in that sense, it's not really a bounty in reality. It's a bounty only according to what that person thinks that they've got. So that's the difference. However, if somebody has a ni'mah from Allah, some great gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether that means, you know, a good dress, whether that means a good car, whether that means a nice handbag, whether that means somebody being very beautiful, whether that means somebody having a nice husband or a nice wife, you know, or whatever, or nice children, a good job, whatever the case is, and this other person is desiring that why does the other person have that, it should be removed from that person, right? Or that the person is very pious, very religious, they're able to make tahajjud, they mashallah able to benefit a lot of people. Maybe they write a lot of they write a lot and benefit people. Maybe they are a good teacher, maybe they run a school, maybe they run a madrasa, maybe they run a poor person's home, maybe they're doing relief work. Whatever the work is, you know, something to do with the akhirah that has no detriment for that person, but this person sits back and just desires that it be removed from that person. Now that is what you call hasad, jealousy, or negative envy. That's what is really problematic, right? Just this desire that person, why have they got that? He should not have it. Now there's an issue here that sometimes this kind of thought may creep into the heart. About this, when you see somebody with it, shaitan will bring a notion of it, will pierce the heart with that notion. Now there's nothing wrong with that, because that's something we don't have control over, that some thought comes into our heart. The problem will be if we continue to entertain and sustain that thought and then act upon it. However, if the thought comes into the heart and we feel, hey, I shouldn't be thinking like this, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, I should not be thinking like this, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with that kind of thought, according to all the scholars, because it's involuntary to get those thoughts, but it's a voluntary thing whether we persist in those thoughts and build them up or not. So we should just take it out completely. The other thing is that if the thought occurs in the heart and then we act upon it, then that is clearly wrong, which means that if it becomes manifest in any of our limbs, that we then maybe to put the other person down, we kind of make an indication with our eyes, we turn our nose up, right? We turn our mouth up, we curse them, we say something bad about them, we make a gesture with our hands, or whatever the case is, then all of that would become haram. فَحَسَدُهُ حَرَامٌ بِالْإِتِّفَاقِ. That's what the author says. He says that that would be considered to be completely haram and impermissible. However, if it comes into the heart, but a person doesn't act upon it, and no effect of it comes outside, it's just an internal thought, it's just something you keep thinking in your mind, but you don't do anything with it outside, then is that haram or not? There's a bit of a difference of opinion as to whether it's a bad thing completely, because eventually it could overflow and come out and express itself when you get really angry. But is it haram or less than haram? So that's what the discussion is. According to Imam Ghazali, he says that this is also haram as well, because it's going to lead to a haram if you continue to persist on that. So that's why you must dispel this kind of thought from your heart. There's another level now. If somebody has all of these good things or whatever, right, a friend of yours or a cousin of yours or a brother or a sister of yours, and subhanAllah, this happens between sisters, it happens between brothers sometimes. Somebody makes it lucky, so then they get jealous of the other one, right, or the other one gets jealous, and it's really a sad case. It breaks families, especially when it comes out into the open, when the person does something, when you say something about it. Now, Allama Nahlawi mentions that if you see something on someone, but you do not intend that it be removed from that person, so you don't think of it negatively, in a sense that you see it, you register it in your mind that, oh, that person has this, but you don't want it to be removed from that person. You just think that, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give me such a thing as well. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give me such a thing as well. Well, that then is not negative envy, and that is actually then called positive envy, which in Arabic is called ghibta or tanafus, munafasa. It's called ghibta or munafasa, which means it's called positive envy, or a positive competitive spirit. It's a positive competitive spirit, and that will not be haram. In fact, that would be, it depends on what it's about, but if it's about otherworldly things, which means if it's about akhirah, if it's about something good that the other person is doing that's religious, then it's actually going to be mustahab to think that way. That if you see somebody doing great work, it's good to be encouraged by that, and to feel, I wish I could do that as well. Because only when you actually have that desire that you want to be like the other person and have that high himmah, will you actually that you may actually end up doing such a thing. If you see somebody else doing it and you just kind of look aside and you don't entertain it for yourself, that means you got no himmah. Whenever we see somebody doing better, that's like ourselves, but they're doing something great, mashallah, that should raise our himmah, our aspirations. That's how things work in this world. It should raise our aspirations, and we should desire to do that, and we should think, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow me to do that as well. And that is positive envy, or a positive competitive spirit, where there's nothing wrong with that. Now, if it's about the world, if they have something of the world, a nice dress or whatever the case is, and we start desiring that as well, then that's where we have to be careful, because now we're using that to desire the world. We're supposed to look at others and learn for ourselves, not to see others with something great and then learn. Because that's why the Prophet ﷺ said that when you are looking around, you should look at people who are below you in the world, so that you're thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you look at people who are above you in the world, in the sense that they've got something better than you, then you will also desire to get to that level. And that's the way it happens. I mean, you see in certain families, the reason why the whole family will eventually become a certain way is that one person starts something off, the cousins, the family, the brothers, the sisters, and others will see them doing that. They'll also want to do that, because there's a very competitive spirit, especially in families. Then it comes into communities, and you see there will be some entire other communities who might have a lot of money, but they don't express that money in the same way. So, for example, you've got a certain family, they might have a lot of money, but they don't go around showing off with that money. And yet there's another family who's also got some amount of money, but you can see the money on them, right? It's because it's just kind of filtered through to everybody. It's through this tanafus, this ghibta, and it's not normally always praiseworthy, because it's normally done where you're desiring the other thing to be like them in this world, and there's no benefit. Although it's not haram to do that, right? But it can lead to greed for this world and desire. So that is a difficult aspect. It's a problematic aspect. So one needs to be careful about that. Now, Thirdly, the third option here is that somebody has a particular benefit that they think, or a bounty that they think is a bounty for them. So they're very happy about it. Maybe somebody is dating someone else, you know, like somebody, if you're talking about to the school crowd, right, or college crowd, you've got a friend who is dating this guy, right? You've got a friend who's dating this guy, or if you're talking to men, you know, you're dating this really great girl or whatever it is, you know, this really beautiful looking girl or whatever the case is, right? The person who's involved in that is going to be thinking that they're very successful, that they're very lucky, that they're very fortunate, and that they've got a bounty, because the whole reason they're doing this is because they enjoy doing it and they think it's halal to do it, or maybe they don't think it's halal to do it, but maybe they think it's something they need to do. Now, if somebody is jealous of that, in the sense that for the benefit of the other person, for the sake of the salvation of the other person, you make dua that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala remove that haram, the unlawfulness from that, make it halal for them, or may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make remove the unlawfulness from it, the prohibition, his prohibited action or her prohibited action. Well, let's take another example. Somebody is involved in selling drugs. They think, I'm making lots of money. Right? They're involving selling haram stuff, and they're thinking that because they're making lots of money, it's a great thing from Allah. It's a great thing that they've got this. You want that removed from them, right? So in this case, it kind of seems to fit half of the definition of hasad that we did in the beginning, the desire to remove something, a bounty from another person. Now the thing here is that in reality, it's not a bounty. It's a punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And to desire that certain things, these haram acts that people do, should be removed from them, that is obviously not hasad. In fact, that's a good thought in the heart. That's a good thought in the heart. How do you remove hasad? That's very important, because I'm sure we all experience a level of hasad at one time or another. And some people probably are sitting here thinking about all the people that they have hasad over. You know, their sister-in-law, for example. Just because she's got the latest phone, you're going to go and bug your husband because I want the latest phone as well. I knew of one case where all the women in a community, well, not all the women, but in this group in the community that used to hang out together, they all started buying these Mercedes SUVs. Because one particular woman, her husband had bought her, and this was in America, her husband had bought her one of these Mercedes SUVs. What are they? What series is that?
Like a Jeep.
Yeah, it's that kind of stuff, right? The Jeep kind of, they bought one. So then, you know, the other one, she started pestering her husband, so he bought one, and then the third one, and eventually it's like, those who could buy it, they bought it. The other ones, they were feeling really bad and gutted about it, right? So it's really a problematic thing, and if we've got this kind of hasad in our mind, we really need to deal with it, because the punishment is ours. The whole thing about this is that there are some major problems. All of that, if we focus on the calamities, of having hasad, harboring envy, jealousy about somebody, then you will realize that it's not worth it. We will actually make amends to change it. For example, there are a number of calamities related about it. One is ifsadu ta'at, which means it will corrupt your ibadah. And the way it will corrupt your ibadah, you will be fasting and you'll have these thoughts about jealousy, you'll have these thoughts about this other person, it's going to corrupt your fast. You're going to be making salat, you may see the other person, they'll come to your house, your hospitality to them is all going to be messed up, right? So any ibadah that you do, because of this thought that will adulterate and pollute your mind, it will spoil your worship. Number two, the feeling could eventually erupt into the commissioning of a haram act, which means you may go and scratch the other person's car, you may tear the dress of that person, you may throw the handbag down when they're not looking, right, to make it seem like an accident, but you're just doing it out of great spite. You may say something about them, you may end up in ghiba about them, you may end up in making a false accusation against them, just because you want to hurt them, you want that thing to be removed from them, so now it will express in all these different ways. Because normally what the ulama mention from experience is that normally a hasid is a person who's envious like this negatively, he is hardly free of doing ghiba, or making up a lie, or swearing at the other person, or if there is any calamity that befalls the other person that he is or she is envious about. If some calamity befalls them, this person is going to rejoice. The person is going to get very happy that the calamity is on that person, so they're going to be really happy about it. And all of these things are considered haram. Number three, A person who is envious like this, they are deprived from intercession on the Day of Judgment. Because when they're not willing to allow somebody else to live in the way Allah has made them, then why should Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive this person and give them an extra boost? Because what is hasad? What we're complaining about? We're complaining about what Allah has decided to give someone else. So although we're complaining about that person because we don't like that person for having that thing, we're saying, we're complaining against Allah. Why did you give that person that thing? It's though Allah doesn't know. You think that person is not deserving of it. So you're trying to tell Allah, I know he's not deserving. Why do you think he's deserving of it? So that's a major problem. That's why the intercession will not be accepted. Number 4. دخول النار من غير حساب. Now this one is scary. The person will enter hellfire without questioning. Now we've constantly heard about people entering paradise without questioning, which is a great thing. But this one is you'll be entered into the hellfire without questioning, without reckoning. What that means is, before the reckoning takes place on the Day of Judgment, after which is decided whether a person has more good deeds or bad deeds, and then it's decided whether they go to the right or to the left, paradise or hellfire, these people who are hasideen, their punishment, to make it even more severe, is that they will be taken from the gathering place, the mahshar, before the reckoning even takes place, before any questioning is taking place, and they'll be thrown into the hellfire. So it's the absolute opposite of being put into the paradise with a fast ticket, right, without questioning. This is like a fast ticket to hell, before even questioning. That is scary. And that's mentioned in a hadith that's related by Imam Daylami from Abdullah ibn Umar and Anas radiallahu anhu. They both relate that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said there will be 6 types of people that will enter the hellfire before the hisab, before the reckoning, by 1 year. So 1 year in advance they'll say, look, you guys are just out of here, right? You guys are going to hell. Ya Rasulullah, they said, right? Somebody said, who are these people? And they said, Al-Umara'u bil-Jur. Those leaders, those amirs, leaders, elected individuals, whoever they are, that command the haram, that command the dhulm and oppression. Number 2 is the Arabs, for any prejudice that they may hold against non-Arabs, for example. Then wealthy people who are arrogant with their wealth. That's the 3rd type of people. Tujjaru bil khiyana, which means traders who are untrustworthy, non-trustworthy traders who deceive in their business. And Ahlul Rustaq al-Qura bil-Jahl, many people from villages who, because of their ignorance, why didn't they go and learn? Why didn't they study the deen? And so on. Wal-Ulama'u bil-Hasad, and the scholars for the envy that they have. Because when you see another scholar who's being invited for lectures or talks, or people are really talking about them and people are speaking about them, maybe being very hospitable to them, being very nice to them, respecting them, honoring them, you feel hasad. Why does he have that? Why don't I have that? Right? It's completely fine to think that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give me the tawfiq also to benefit as many people. Not that I want, it's not a good thought to think I want to also be respected that way. Because then that becomes personal as opposed to for the deen. So that's the hadith that's based upon. And number 4, it leads to harming somebody else. So one is the thoughts in the heart and everything that you do, but the other one is that it also leads to harming the other person, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually told us in the Quran, in Surah Al-Nas, وَمِن شَرِّ غَاسِقٍ إِذَا وَقَبْ وَمِن شَرِّ النَّفَّاثَاتِ فِي الْعُقَدِ وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدٍ. Well, actually in Surah Al-Falaq, وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدٍ, and I seek refuge in Allah, the Lord, from the hasid, from the envious one, when he exercises his envy. What that means is that as long as the envy is within the person, it doesn't exercise, it doesn't do anything with it, it's not going to be harmful to anybody. But you really want to be protected once the person starts acting upon it, because it is such an internal rage that it sees it's indiscriminating, right? Okay, and number 6 is it's going to exhaust you. It's going to wear you out, it's going to stress you out, it's going to exhaust you without any fa'idah. You're not going to get any fa'idah by this internal nagging and this feeling in the heart. In fact, aside from getting any benefit, what it's going to give you is it's going to give you sin. So all of these bad thoughts and what might come after that in an expression, it's going to lead to sin and disobedience, and there's going to be no benefit. And at the same time, you're being tired out. You're being totally fatigued by it. You know, it's okay to be fatigued by work to earn some money. You're getting something at the end of it. But this one is for free. And it's personal. It's nothing to do with anybody else. And number 7, the ulama mentioned, is it will blind the heart to such a degree that a person will become so confused even about what's halal and haram. Because the internal rage of it is so strong that a person loses their mind and their balance. And it leads to that they will do things that they would never have dreamt of doing had they been in a sane mind. And number 8, it will lead to deprivation in this world, because it leads to non-function, confusion and so on. You will not gain success in the world because you'll be so consumed by something that you should not even be consumed about. That it's going to occupy your entire time. You will become forsaken. People will start looking at you and thinking that, you know, you're just in another world and so on. And it will you won't be able to fight against your enemies, your real enemies, right? And that's why it says al-hasud la yasud, which means the envious person never becomes a leader, because they just don't have the mental capability anymore to do it. Because what they do will be maybe just for a short time. They may have some successes, but then after that they lose everything. The way to deal with it is for us to recognize, this is the ilaj, this is the cure, the treatment, is for us to realize that hasad has a great amount of harm in the world and in terms of our deen. And there is no detriment unless you expose it. There's no detriment for the person you're actually envious about. The person is doing their work and you know, you're getting all angry about it. In fact, the other person doesn't even know that you may be jealous of them. They're actually benefiting from it, even though they don't even know what's going on. The reason why they're benefiting from it is that they're getting all your rewards, right? They're getting all your rewards about it. And the reason for that is because of a person's hasad, you have actually enraged Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by trying to tell him that what you've done is wrong. So he's going to be very angry, right, of the way because you're complaining about the way he has distributed his bounties in the world, right? The opposite of it should be nusх and nasiha. So when you have this constant feeling of wishing well for someone, goodwill for someone, that will take away the hasad from a person's heart. And the way to do that is, when you feel hasad about somebody, go and make dua for them. Like as soon as you feel hasad that somebody has this good thing or whatever, you just make dua for them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them more. That will be very difficult to make, but believe me, once you do that, it removes the problem. Because it's about struggling with the heart. It's a heart problem. It's literally a psychological problem, a spiritual problem. And once you start doing the opposite, that's the way to deal with it. That's why the ulama mentioned that it's similar things like this. That if you're a very miserly person, you can't spend. Go and spend on somebody. Go and spend in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you will see that it will open up your heart. So if you find it very difficult to spend £5 even, right, or $10 in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, go and spend 20. Go and spend 50. Spend 10 times the amount once as a treatment. Pretend you're paying a doctor for a treatment. Pretend you're going to a specialist and pay that amount of money in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Go out. If your friends are always treating you and you can't treat anybody else, the Prophet ﷺ said, وَأَطْعِمُ الطَّعَامِ, right? Feed people, right? If you can't do that, well, one day just invite everybody and do that. And you will see that inshallah it will remove this problem. Otherwise it will consume our hearts, and it is extremely detrimental, and it's absolutely worthless because we don't get any benefit out of it. The other person actually gets all the benefit. If we get anything, it's harm, psychological torture, problem, depression, and all the rest of it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to understand and cure ourselves of this problem.